You're listening to WCOM LP 103.5 FM Carborough and Chapel Hill. It's a Tuesday, it's 5 o'clock, and that only means one thing. It's time for another round of Snarky Faith with your host, Stuart Deloney. This is a space where we irreverently wrestle through life, culture, and spirituality, all with our heads in the clouds, our tongues in our cheeks, our hearts in our sleeves, and our feet on the ground. At Snarky Faith, the questions or even the answers are never the point. It's all about the conversation. So here's your host, Stuart Deloney.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to another round of Snarky Faith Radio. I'm your host, Stuart Deloney. It is great to be back here another week. And I'm going to tell you, this show today, it's a bit action-packed. So I'm going to actually have to ignore a lot of pleasantries as we're beginning here. This is going to kind of be like a wham, bam, thank you, radio listener type of a show. But yes, you have come here to Snarky Faith, a place where we talk about the weird confluence of politics and spirituality and religion and how all that makes really weird children. And they're not pretty. They are not pretty. They're like Appalachian pretty. I've already gone off rails already on the show. So yeah, good start already. So yeah, I hope everyone is doing well this week. As we said, but there's a lot we're going to be talking about today. And today we're going to be centering around a huge conversation about voting and essentially why we need to get off our asses and vote. And why getting off our asses and voting is the bare minimum that we can do as a citizen. And I'll even stretch scripture to a point where saying that, hey, if Jesus said love your neighbor, I kind of feel like this year voting does literally mean loving your neighbor, especially if your neighbor has a different skin color than you do or worships differently than you do. But, you know, hey, we're all called to love our neighbors, so let's talk politics today. Now, if you are new to this show, this is going to be, I say this all the time, this is going to be a different show than usual because I think every show is odd and weird and interesting and terrible and hilarious and sad. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But this show where we talk about faith and religion in America, just to prep you, that this show is going to be wrought and full of
sarcasm.
And also along the way, you have to expect to hear a couple of. And if you're cool with that, I think we're good to go. I think you are ripe and ready for Snarky Faith today. All right? I know. I like to spend more time at the beginning, but, you know, it's just not that show today. So here we go. So for all the type A personalities out there, the ones that like to mark up the bulletins on Sundays and look through, where's this sermon going? The order of worship today on this show will be this. We're going to be talking with author and activist Doug Padgett about his work with Vote Common Good. Then we're going to move to the Christian Crazy, dissecting the insanity of Christianity in America today. And last, a hopeful talk about the Supreme Court. Hopeful in the end. So we're going to go through a tough talk about the Supreme Court. And then that's going to be it, boys and girls. That's what we've got today. So without further ado, let's hop over and get to my chat with Doug Padgett. So let's go. Today, I've got the privilege of sitting here with Doug Padgett. He's an author. He's an activist. He is a pastor. And right now, Doug is on the road and has been on the road, I guess, right, Doug? With Vote Common Good. So welcome, Doug. Welcome.
Hey, Stuart. Thanks so much, man. Really, really glad to be here. Yeah, not only are we on the road, right now we're in a parking lot in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We travel on a big bus that says Faith, Hope, and Love for a Change on Election Day. And we live on this bus. So I am both simultaneously on the road and at home.
I love it. So for those people that don't know what Vote Common Good is, can you kind of just give us, what is this? What are you up to right now, Doug?
Yeah, Vote Common Good is an organization that we started in 2018 to try to inspire, motivate, and resource faith voters, especially white evangelicals and white Catholics, to stop the re-election of Donald Trump as an act of their faith. And we started it because, as you mentioned, I'm a writer and a pastor and organized church and religious leaders around the country. And I concluded that all the work that I had done over the last 2.5 decades had contributed in its own way to so many white religious people supporting Donald Trump on election day. And while it's easy for me to want to say, well, that wasn't me, I've been in the progressive stream, or I've been trying to do emerging stuff, I don't think any of us should think we can slice the prosciutto that thin to separate ourselves off from what happened. Our faith, our industry, our movement of spirituality, the Christian movement of spirituality in this country, allowed people, encouraged them, almost made it possible for them to vote for Donald Trump. And we wanted to do something to counteract that in a much more aggressive and straightforward way.
So what are you doing? You're traveling in a bus. You're countering this. You guys are having events. I know that you're doing a lot of other stuff. So tell us, what is happening physically as you're moving from city to city? What's it look like?
Yeah, well, what's sort of exciting for this week is we're going to be coming to North Carolina for our first time in this part of the tour. We're going to be holding events on Wednesday in Raleigh, on Tuesday in Winston-Salem, on Thursday in Greensboro. And the events that we run, they involve speakers and musicians and poets, and they're sort of part political rally, part revival, part training, and they're designed to help the people who are there become more engaged. Our final just over 30 days before this election, to become more engaged in the election, even if they already are. We want to give people some additional resources, and be glad to tell you about the kind of work that we do at those events. But all of this fits into a larger media narrative, actually. As important as it is to have people at the events, and we hope everyone will turn out and will show up. We socially distance, everything is outside, people wear masks, all the rest of that. Important work that we have to do for in light of mismanaged pandemic in our country. We're really trying to change the media narrative, and so our events are part of that. We're often covered by the local news, and we're covered by television news, radio, newspapers. And one of the things I learned, Stuart, which is fascinating to me in this work we've been doing for 2 years, is that local news is the number one news source for, by far, all Americans. Not even close. Mm-hmm. You can tell yourself it's all because your uncle, your aunt, your grandparents, your neighbor, your son is watching Fox News. They don't come close to the local news. It's not where people get their information, both from their television, from their radio, newspapers, and from the local news websites. So we do a lot of work to try to be in those local markets, because so many voters have never heard a person of faith say, if you're Christian, you don't have to vote for Republicans. And so many of them have heard their entire life, if you're a Christian, especially white people, if you're a Christian, you have to vote for Republicans. Even for this guy, Donald Trump, even if he's the Republican standard bearer, you have to vote for him. So really what we're trying to do is to play into that media narrative. And so we do a lot of other things. We're going to be launching a billboard campaign next week that has Jesus on one side of a billboard with a quote, Donald Trump on the other side with a Donald Trump quote. And then the tagline is hiswordsmatter.org. And it's a website that helps people know that there's, somebody's contending for not allowing religious people to let Donald Trump use our religion to trample over the American people.
And so you've been at this for a while. And are you feeling, like, what are you seeing on the road? Are you feeling really excited and hopeful for the things that you're seeing as you're traveling around the country?
Yeah, we are. And I want to say, look, there's good news afoot. Our organization also does polling. So we did polling of religious voters, white evangelicals and white Catholics, in the 5 swing states that we think matter most: North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And we've seen in that polling that voters who are evangelical and white Catholics are leaving Donald Trump. And those who didn't vote for either Trump or Hillary Clinton in 2016 are going to vote in this election. And by an 11-point increase, are going to be voting for Joe Biden. So that's good news. Mm-hmm. But I come from Minnesota. And in Minnesota, where I live, when the car gets stuck in a snow ditch, people come out to push the car. Just as the car is starting to rock out of the ditch, right as you feel like it's going to pop out, that's when everybody yells, push, 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 and you push as hard as you can.
Yes.
It's in that, because if you don't, car will slip right back down.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2016, at this point, we're recording this on September 26th. On September 26th of 2016, I was as sure as you could be. In fact, I was so confident Hillary Clinton was going to win that election and Donald Trump was going to lose, that I stopped talking about it. I didn't want to be rubbing it in. I wasn't making the argument and contending any longer for how people were going to vote. And I made a commitment on November 9th at 3 a.m. in the morning when my screen showed Donald Trump, and CNN said, we now can declare that Donald Trump will be 45th president of the United States. At that moment, I said, well, I'm never doing that again. I'm not going to let that happen. And so I've been plotting, scheming, planning, driving, talking, consorting, doing anything I can to make sure that on November 3rd of 2020, this country raises its voice again and we say something different.
Now, are you seeing any pushback as you guys are going to cities, especially in a lot of these swing states?
Dude, we get yelled at every day, sworn at. Sometimes people steal our stuff. We were at an event yesterday, and we often have Black Lives Matter signs that we set out along with our other yard signs and paraphernalia that we have for Vote Common Good. People, they argue with us. They come up and shout. Our people sometimes cut our bus off on roads, on highways and side roads. They've thrown coffee cups at us. No, it's the real deal. When you're out and you're contending, as we are in public spaces and doing events in public, like on the steps at the Capitol in Harrisburg here, Pennsylvania, or in a public park yesterday, as we'll do it in Raleigh, we're in a public park. Yeah, no, people drive their cars, by and rev the engines and yell. And it's a lot of ways you want to say this is what democracy looks like, but frankly, this is what a hostile citizenry looks like when there's a president who continues to raise the stakes and use such violence, in his own words, and spurs on people to their lesser angels. And look, there's a lot of scared people on both sides, and when you're scared, you do things that you wouldn't do otherwise, and it's happening all over. So we're in the middle of it. And here's the other thing I'll tell you, and this is what's sort of going to sound like the opposite of what I just said. Then people don't really care. I mean, I hear pastors all the time say stuff like, I know, but I still can't really say anything about Donald Trump, and I can't talk about it. We can't host your event. We have to care about. I'm like, okay, if you all think that this is just life is normal, and I get it. That's an argument that people make. They think nothing is all that different right now.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think things are significantly different right now.
I agree with you, yes.
And look, getting a new president, if Joe Biden wins on election day, that doesn't solve all of our problems.
No, not at all.
There's a lot of problems that still need to be addressed. But the president shouldn't be the problem. And Donald Trump is the problem in this case, right? And so, look, Joe Biden's not going to be the solution to everything. But we need to get busy working on the racial reckoning in this country, on our social disorder, on a new kind of political correction of what's going on, and more engagement in our economy and our healthcare system, and why people are having to pay for internet as the third highest bill that they pay every month. It's outrageous. And we have to have a health delivery system that's backed up by our state, county, and federal governments, not just a reimbursement system to those governments. Like, there's a lot of work to do.
Yes.
But we can't get to any of it because Donald Trump is an absolute disaster in and of himself. And, what it really feels like to me is, and you live in a place where hurricanes, ravage the land.
Yep.
There's always things to be changing in our society. But when a hurricane strikes, that jumps to the front of the line.
Yeah.
You have to deal with the impact of the hurricane, the natural disaster first, whether it's a hurricane or an earthquake or a typhoon or a windstorm, tornado. That takes priority. And right now, Donald Trump is a full-on natural disaster.
Absolutely.
And so I've changed my life around, traveling around, and why other people just still sit this thing out. And, this one, I recognize I'm a rabid activist on this, right? And I'm also an Enneagram 8. So one of the things that Enneagram 8s do is want everybody to get as excited and passionate about things as we are. But It really is shocking. And if I can just wax on for another minute here, if people think they know what they would have done in the 1960s during the civil rights movement, and you think you would know what you would have done in the 1920s during the social movement, and you think you would have known what you were going to do in the 1860s or in the 1760s, and you're pretty sure you would have stepped up, you would have spoke out, you would have been on the right side, and you're unwilling to do it right now, I think it tells you exactly what you would have done in all those other 60s, right? Not to be, I guess you can bleep this out if you need to, but not to be a total asshole about it. But this is the kind of thing that I think we need to be saying to one another is this isn't a normal moment. This is not about Democrats and Republicans. Now, look, we're a bipartisan effort.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I mean by that. We're asking independents, Republicans, Democrats, Green Party members, anarchists. We're asking everyone to vote against Donald Trump. This is not a partisan issue at all. We want the entire country to raise their voices and say together, this guy has got to go, right? If somebody thinks that we're being partisan because we're standing against Donald Trump, I would just say, hey, look, we're joined with the great movement of all the people from every political side that is trying to stop this guy because, as the old cliche says, this is about right and left. This is about right and wrong. And we're trying to do something about it. And if faith people continue to sit this thing out, or progressive faith people sit this thing out and let the religious right continue to run the national narrative of faith and religion in this country, or faith and politics in this country, we just can't do it for another cycle. So sorry for the mini sermon.
No, I love it. I love it because I think we need these sermons. I think you were right. I think that too often we become too complacent with where we're at. We feel like we've done enough. We feel like we've done our part, and there's always more to do. So speaking on that, so yes, you have events that are coming up that you're continuing to do. But before I even get to that, how would you recommend people get involved? So say people are listening to this, or say people are saying, yeah, how can I do this? How do I get off my ass? How do we get involved? How do we make a difference? What would you recommend them do?
Yeah. Well, as my friend said, she grew up in a family of kind of social activists in the 80s. And her mom used to say, honey, when you live in a time of social turmoil, you don't do nothing, you do something. So first off, find your something, right? Figure out what it is. And for the next 30 plus days, do it over and over and over. Just give another hour every day. It'll be over in a month. Some people go on like these eating diets for 30 days, Whole 30 or something else. And they'll tell you when you're on one of those, like, you can manage not having coffee or sugar for 30 days. You're going to be all right, right? Yeah. I know it's going to feel really hard. You can do more. And pick your thing, right? And then lean into it. We're really fond of an effort we have going where we're writing postcards. Now, in our case, we have pre-made postcards that have a Christian message on one side and an ask to join me in stopping Donald Trump on Election Day. Blank postcard on the backside. You can write your own personal note. And then we supply addresses with every postcard, 15 addresses with 15 postcards of faith voters in North Carolina, in Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. So you get your pick of states. And these are people we know are going to vote and are likely evangelicals. So we want them to get something in their mailbox from your mailbox. You might not be able to go door to door, but I think you can go mailbox to mailbox, or you can put a sign up. But we're not the only people doing postcards. There's a lot of people doing postcards. There's a lot of postcard mailing movements out there. So find one and get out and do it. And if you think you're saying too much, I know people worry about that. And they say, I wonder, am I putting too much on my Instagram posts, or am I doing too much on Twitter? Am I saying too much on Facebook? I would just say, if you're worried about that, do 3 times more and then be worried about it, right? Like this is no time to be worried about it. I promise you, the algorithm or somebody blocking you will take care of that. People will self-sort. They'll make sure. So find a thing and do it, and say something to those neighbors and friends. Here's one of the things we keep meeting in our events. We meet people who say, I voted for Trump in 2016. Or yesterday, one said, my sister voted for Trump in 2016. She told me she's not going to do that again. People really do change. We've seen it in our polling. We're meeting people all along. They really do change. So believe that people can do the next right thing. And just one last bit. We don't have to spend a lot of time telling people how bad Donald Trump is. Mm-hmm. Now, we spend a lot of energy in our events and in our media and in our messaging, helping people to know how to leverage into this. But frankly, the man is like a self-cleaning oven. He does all the work for you, right? You don't have to work hard to figure out that he's incompetent, that he mismanaged a pandemic, that he's uninterested in the job, and that he debases the presidency. Mm-hmm. It's not about telling people how bad Donald Trump is. It's about reminding them how good they are. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to talk to your friend, if you're going to talk to your parent, if you're going to talk to your neighbor, remind them that they're a good person and they need to vote common good, not because Donald Trump or Joe Biden are good. Now, one of them is and one of them isn't, but because they're good. See, and this is the thing that we have to remember in voting is about the voter. It's not about the candidate. It's one of the reasons that Vote Common Good, we're not a lobbying group trying to lobby politicians to be better politicians. This effort is about trying to lobby voters to be better voters. Yeah. And that's a thing that we can do. That's a thing we can control in our conversations with our friends and the work we're doing is to call people up. One of the people who's one of our musicians is someone named Daniel Dietrich. And Dan wrote a song called The Hymn for the 81%. It's really great.
Yes.
And has this great line in it where he says, come home. You're better than this. You taught me better than this. Why can't you live the words that you put in my mouth? Come home. Right? And he's speaking to the people who raised him and the world that he comes from. And that's really the call. I think people attach to that song because they feel that thing that if you believe that these Trump supporters in your family are good people, and you should, some of them are really good people doing a very bad thing. And it's a good reminder that good people do bad things. What we need to call them to do is to be good people and to stop doing a bad thing, right? And I would just encourage people to not pull back on that and to say it as clear and as blunt as they can. And we recognize how hard it is. Like we're out here running the shtick and doing a thing, and have a whole apparatus behind us. But it's hard when you're standing up in front of a bunch of people disagree with you to say it straight. Mm-hmm. So we get it, and we're all in this together, and everyone's trying to figure out a way to do it. Mm.
So with you guys moving forward, so if people wanted to get involved with with what you guys are doing with writing letters, how do they connect with you?
They go to votecommongood.com, and then there you'll find postcard campaigns, yard sign campaigns, a billboard campaign. We're putting up billboards. We're going to have mobile billboards traveling around North Carolina, have a message of Jesus on one side, a quote from Trump on the other side. And, we're calling people to it. So there's lots of ways. And there's trainings on there. There's help for religious leaders and pastors and people that run nonprofits on how they can be engaged. And there's all kinds of stuff. And then we're active on social media. We produced a video that cuts in images of Donald Trump during a Billy Graham sermon. That's a pretty good one. So Twitter has since blocked it, but it's still on Facebook, and it's really powerful. So you should share that, find other ones, share them around, and do what we can. So if they go to votecommongood.com, they'll find resources. They can adopt a state, they can engage, they can show up at events, and they can create their own events. And can I tell you about one more thing we're doing, which is a little less partisan for the little less fighters in the world?
Absolutely.
It's a project to save the U.S. Post Office. It's called Make America Great Again. And people can go to our website, and they can also votecommongood.com, and also go to savethepostoffice.us. What it is a citizen-led national bake sale on October 17th to fund the post office. The president's going to attack the post office. Congress can't figure out how to properly fund it. We're going to take matters into our own pans, as we say. And we're going to have a national bake sale. And we're looking for people all over the country to host bake sales where people buy baked goods with stamps. So you go to the post office, you buy stamps. Primary way to fund the post office is to buy stamps. Mm-hmm. And come to one of these bake sales, exchange it for baked goods, and then all those stamps get donated to a charity.
Love it.
Or host a bake sale. Or become a baker yourself. So we like to say you can be a baker, you can become a host, you can become a stamp buyer and bakery and baked good buyers. And we're going to do these all over the country. And we want churches to host them. We want civic groups to host bake sales. We got a group of nuns that are going to be running bake sales. And it's going to be really quite a fun project. So we hope people are out. And we also tell them it's also a great day to do your mail-in ballot if you haven't done it yet on October 17th. So get your ballot in the
That is awesome. I love that. I love different ways for people to be engaged and getting involved in this, even at every different kind of level. So moving forward, so this week I know you have, so tell us just a little bit. So basically when we're airing here, so this week Wednesday, you're going to be in Raleigh having a rally. Is that correct? Yes?
We are.
On the 30th. Yeah, there's a rally in rally in Raleigh on the 30th, if I can actually say that. And then I also know Greensboro, you're going to be in Greensboro, North Carolina on the 1st of October. And then you guys are moving down to Florida as you're going down.
That's
right.
How
it works? Okay.
Yeah, if I can add one in, we're also going to be in Winston-Salem on Tuesday, the 29th.
Nice. Okay.
So, and all these are on our website. There's also Facebook events for all these. But we'll be in Winston-Salem over at the Parkway Presbyterian Church. And on Tuesday and on Wednesday, we're going to be at Open Table United Methodist Church on Bloodworth Street in Raleigh. And then we're going to be over at the Church of the Covenant in Greensboro on Thursday. And then we head our way down to Florida, spend 10 days in Florida. Then we come back through North Carolina. So if anybody's listening to this and thinks, I can't make it to one of those, or I would love to have had one of these Vote Common Good events, in their town, we're going to be back in North Carolina the 18th through the 27th of October. So if someone's thinking, well, let's host one of these. And look, we do these things all over. All the ones I mentioned are in church parking lots. A lot of times churches tell us no, so we go to public parks. And if we can't find a public park, then we've done them in Union Hall parking lots. We did one in a shopping mall parking lot. We've done them we did it at the state capitol here in Harrisburg. Like, we will set up about anywhere and do it with a group of about any size, because this traveling group of musicians, speakers, activists, and poets, we're committed to this, and we're going to say something and do something every day. And so if anybody's interested in partnering with us and giving it a try, we'd love to have that invitation to join you.
Awesome. I love that. So for the next couple days, as everyone's listening to this on the air, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, different events going on here in state, and then returning back again on the 18th of October. So if anyone is looking for more information, again, Doug, you're saying everyone needs to go to votecommongood.com. Any final words from you, Doug? I love it. Thank you so much for your time, too. Any final words to our listeners?
Well, yeah. Well, just look, a lot of us are trying to figure out what holds us together in this country. And not everybody holds religious faith. And some of us who hold it, we hold it very loosely. This isn't about our religious faith being that which brings us together. It's, if you're a person of faith, your faith is what compels you to care about someone else. Brian Berghoff, who's running for Congress in Holland, Michigan, was at our event last week. And he has a great line in his stump speech. He says, I'm not running for Congress only because I love politics. I'm running because I love my neighbor. And so if your faith compels you to love your neighbor, speak up on this one. And not everybody's got hope. People feel very hopeless, and different ones of us are encouraged by different things. And we don't have enough love in our lives. We don't have enough love in our churches. We don't have enough love in our politics. We need more love in this country. And so if you feel faithless, if you feel hopeless, if you feel loveless, join a community of faith, hope, and love. And it's the only way that I've ever known that you can overcome those other feelings of it's just not going to be okay. And look, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion this country is going to be okay. I think we're making the decisions about if this country is going to be okay. And one of the days we're going to make that decision is on November 3rd. And then we're going to make that decision on November 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. And for every day, we have to decide how we're going to treat one another in this country. And what we've been doing up until this point clearly is not working. So it's time for a little faith, hope, and love.
I think faith, hope, and love is what we need moving forward. So Doug, thank you so much for your time, and keep up the good work as you were along the trail too. So thank you so much, Doug.
Right on. Well, thank you. And thanks for your time.
So one of the things that Doug was saying is that we're living in a time right now where things are not normal. And in a show where we're very packed with a lot of information today, we're going to give the not normal, crazy version of Christian crazy so you can see the insanity of Christianity. So to lead us into having a conversation that hopefully will lead towards change. But yes, so the Christian crazy is where we show the insanity of Christianity. And here's what's really, really, really out there and really, really, really crazy.
Lord have mercy. The Lord is my shepherd. He know what I want.
So this week in the Christian Crazy, I'm only going to let you listen to Michelle Bachmann. She's talking about a hypothetical situation that she just made up and pulled out of her ass. But she's using it to scare people to vote. And this should terrify us on many levels. And this will lead us into our main conversation today.
So could you have a more perfectly framed scenario for fraud? So in this kind of scenario, it is entirely possible that you could have ballots already filled out. In fact, they could be printed in China. They could be routed through various countries so you can't detect them, make their way into Minnesota, be in a barn somewhere until after the election day is over, you count up the ballots and you say, gee, how many more do we need? Oh, we're short 48,000? No problem. You go out, you haul the ballots in.
So thanks, barn ballot lady. That made sense, that there's a barn full of Chinese ballots that all they need to do is put them in. Yeah, this election matters because there's a lot of crazy out there, and it's being peddled, and it's going to impact the future of our country. Yes. So all of that brings me to where we sit right now. We've been through the sane, vote common good. We've been through the insane, the crazy Christian. And now this is where we sit. And this is kind of that time that we all go through in the life of every show, where you kind of have to have a little sit down. I've got 4 kids, so it tells me I have probably 4 times as many sit downs as many people out there. Or maybe my kids just require that many more sit-down, heart-to-heart conversations. But this kind of heart-to-heart conversation I want to have, as we've talked through all that we've talked through so far today, I want us just to take a sober look. When I say a sober look, it's going to sound crazy. But we're going to try to make this as sober as possible. We're going to look into Amy Coney Barrett, who is Trump's nomination to fill the Supreme Court seat left by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And what I really want to talk about, since, hey, we do have a show here talking about faith and politics, let's talk about Amy Coney Barrett's membership with the controversial, what they're going to call covenant group. When I hear the words controversial and covenant group, I say, tell me more. This sounds like a juicy story. And it is. It's really crazy. But not like outside of like 2020 crazy, so it kind of fits right in with where we're already at. Now, what ends up tending to happen when you have a Supreme Court nominee? So the press and the politicians are going to dig into her past, begin to really look at who she is in order to be able to evaluate, should she be elevated to such a position. Everyone remembers such a wonderful time we had back during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, and, you know, America's cool with that, right? Aren't we? No, we're not. Yes. And we talk about this because, mainly, I want to show you why you need to vote, why your vote matters, and why action is needed. Sustained action is needed on a continual basis, all the way towards November and beyond. And I want to talk to an apathetic American audience. An apathetic American audience with whom I'll remind you very quickly, back in 2016, there was only 61% of eligible voters in America voted. So as much as we want to whine about the hellscape that has been unleashed by evangelicals' orange messiah, 61 friggin' percent of people voted. That's the bigger story of why the hell we're here. Okay, I say this in order to hopefully motivate you, because crap is only going to get crazier. If you feel like the past 4 years have been nuts, you ain't seen nothing yet, baby. So let's go ahead and let's do this. Let's hop in and talk about this weird group that Amy Barrett is a part of called People of Peace. Now, it's been said oftentimes in the news that this is a group that has helped inspire The Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood's book, The Handmaid's Tale. And if you go and look, well, if you look over on Snopes, because we're lazy fact checkers, and they had, so they were answering their question just a little while back. Did Amy Coney Barrett's religious group inspire The Handmaid's Tale? Now, they come out saying it's mostly false. But the weird thing is it's like mostly false, but like everything points in the direction of what everyone thinks it is. If that makes any sense? Like, okay. So here's their end rebuke of this, saying like, nah, I really don't think this is true. So did this group inspire Atwood's Handmaid's Tale? So here's what Snopes has to say. The second element of the claim focuses on whether the group did indeed serve as the inspiration for The Handmaid's Tale. In the novel, a futuristic American society is ruled by a Christian fundamentalist government, and women are deprived of their rights, including reproductive rights. The fertile amongst them are assigned as handmaids to give birth to the children of the ruling class of men. Atwood herself did not explicitly reference People of Praise in past interviews discussing the inspiration for her book, though she did make reference to an unnamed, quote, Catholic charismatic spinoff sect in a 1986 interview in the New York Times. So thanks, Snopes. You're right. It's totally inconclusive. But, we're going to be talking a lot about a group that is also a, quote, Catholic charismatic spinoff sect that was also happening at the same time that you wrote the book and were in that interview, per se. So, let's dig a little into the People of Praise. Because, most likely, Barrett's going to be on the Supreme Court. And I remember hearing this with absolute revulsion, because anytime I tend to hear Mitch McConnell speak, it is with revulsion. But also when he's kind of in his like happy, like horny Mitch state, where it's like, brr, 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 brr. He gets grosser. Like when he actually even tries to smile, you kind of throw open your mouth. That like happy Mitch McConnell is nothing anyone wants to see. No. But Mitch, I have heard him say this so many times, and it makes me want to punch him in his throat sack. Well, elections have consequences. Yeah, that thing he does. But he's right. Elections have consequences. This election has consequences. Amy Barrett, if she gets on the Supreme Court, is going to have consequences. Now let's talk about what are those consequences and why we should be a scotch worried. And when I say scotch, I'm being sarcastic because you're listening to a show called Snarky Faith, silly. That's just how it goes. Yeah, it's only going to go downhill. So buckle up. We're going to have fun with this. So who are the People of Praise? Well, this group that she is about. Well, on their website, okay, they say they're Roman Catholics, Lutherans, Episcopalians, Methodists, Pentecostals, Presbyterians, and other denominational and non-denominational Christians. I mean, I love it. I love it because what you've also seen is over time, this group's been around since the 70s. What you begin to see is also they've learned from their mistakes. So when you look on their website, which a lot of church websites also fall under this category of, you say so much nothing. Everyone's like, all right, that looks enough good. But also here's what we're going to get into. So this is not a church. This is what we're going to call a covenant community. But it's a covenant charismatic Christian community that blends all of folks from everyone else around. And as you read through this, you look at their website, you're kind of like, hey, that's great. Like people like breaking bread together, people like living lives together, people doing all this together. This is like, oh, this is great. This is like awesome and ecumenical. So then you start moving down, and I'm going to piss off the Pentecostal folks here, but you just got to know what we're getting into. This is on their website about the who we are. They say this on thepeopleofpraise.org. like hundreds of millions of other Christians in the Pentecostal movement, People of Praise, as members, have experienced a blessing of baptism of the Holy Spirit and the charismatic gifts as described in the New Testament. This is a source of great joy for us and an important aspect of what God is doing in the world today. So we've got someone who is a Catholic that is a speaking in tongues Catholic, and I know. Hey, most common folks in society are going to say, hey, we should not poke holes in their belief systems, but you know what? She's going on the Supreme Court, so I think we really just want to kind of know what she believes. And most folks are going to couch this as, oh, she's just a Catholic. No. She's not just a Catholic. This is, and I'm hoping some of this kind of stuff is going to come out as people ask more questions. Now, let's get into more of the Handmaid's Tale part of this when we begin to look at it. And the Handmaid's Tale part of this, I'm just going to be honest with you, is not the thing that actually is worrying me the most. Now, what most people are worried about are her regressive views on women's right to choose. Now, that is incredibly valid, and that is one of the big problems that a lot of folks are having. Now, when I'm talking about People of Praise, again, I'm going to remind people it's not a church, but what the members of this community are, they are part of a covenant. So it's a covenant they are speaking together. And part of this covenant, here's where it gets a little wonky and a little weird. And this is going to come from the Wikipedia page that is about People of Praise, which is also backed by 2 different articles in this section that I'm reading here. But this is actually the best summation of it. So this lady is going to be on the Supreme Court. That is a part of this community, covenant community. Okay, I'm going to quote them here. Under gender roles. In much of community life, men and women work together without distinction. Both men and women prophesy and exhort at community meetings, teach each other in the community-sponsored schools, serve together as counselors at community camps or as members or heads of music ministries, and evangelize together in inner cities. Still, there's some significant distinction between the roles of men and women. As noted above, women are not able to be coordinators. The community, which refers to itself as a family of families, sees this patriarchal tradition as following the biblical model of family. Men and women meet separately each week in small groups called men's groups and women's groups. The purpose is to build deeper relationships as brothers and sisters in Christ, discussing their lives and issues with the goal of gaining wisdom. They want to deepen friendships, encouraging one another to be faithful to God. Traditional roles are reinforced, encouraging men to do most of the heavier physical work involved when family is moving to a new home or re-roofing, or when setting up meetings or similar tasks. Women are encouraged to provide food and childcare and run an effective household. However, these distinctions are not absolutes. Women have in the past labored side by side beside men in construction. So progressive. Yes. But one of the reasons that people are referring to this and connecting this to Margaret Atwell's book, and for good reason, is their handling of gender roles. And yes, they did call women handmaids for a while. That's a thing. Yep. That's a thing. Because they fully believe that the husbands are the head of the household as well as the spiritual head of the wives. Hey, if you want to be into that kind of like regressive, like kinkster lifestyle, totally fine with it. Totally fine. You know, hey, no judgment. No judgment what you guys do behind closed doors. I just don't think a regressive, submissive kinkster needs to be making decisions on the Supreme Court. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe it's just me. And also, I mean, yeah, totally. The Handmaid's Tale is not based on this at all. Scary? Yes. Yes. But I'm going to take you into a slightly different, scarier direction. One that kind of moves beyond the obvious. Because groups like these are regressive and they're scary. But something else that I kind of just want to lean in on just for a moment on this too is when you have groups that involve vows and loyalty pledges, things like this should always raise concerns for us. Because if you've been a part of some sort of a group that operates under groupthink, especially when it's very patriarchal, who's making the decision? Who's making a decision in such a weird, regressive type of a group? Now we're going to elevate this person and put them on the Supreme Court. Now, again, none of this is about insulting her intelligence, but this is picking apart where she's coming from and how she's going to view the law. Many are terrified of what she's going to do, potentially if the Supreme Court, if she is on it, and the issue of overturning Roe v. Wade comes up. And that is terrifying. But what's also equally terrifying are really what her previous views were and how they can impact us moving forward in regards to the environment too. So this last bit I'm pulling here from is an article over on Axios entitled "The Supreme Court's Coming Rightward Shift on Climate" by Ben Gemin. And pulling from this, well, let's go. I'm going to hop in. I'm going to go ahead and quote directly from the article. Amy Coney Barrett's likely ascension to the Supreme Court would affect climate policy beyond shoving the court in a rightward direction in the abstract. If Joe Biden wins the presidential election, his regulations and potential new climate laws could face litigation that could reach the higher court. If Trump wins, ongoing cases over dismantling of Obama-era policies could also reach the Supreme Court. Now, this what they do in this article here, which is I found actually quite fascinating, was picking apart what she has done in the past, looking at what types of writings that she has done and which way she leans, especially in how she chooses to interpret the law. So the article continues saying this. So Barrett's writings suggest that support for non-delegation doctrine, which is a legal theory that massively restricts how much power Congress can hand off to executive agencies. So she seems to have support for this. This idea that Congress should be restricted in how much power they can hand off to executive type agencies, aka the EPA. Anyone? Because remember, like what we have on the books is we have a Clean Air Act that was supposed to tackle global warming, but it's a 50-year-old law that's already in place. And looking also at her history, Barrett's past writings, continuing on in the article, writings on stare decisis is the idea that past court holdings should be upheld to argue that she's open to revisiting past rulings, meaning that she is not a person that always leans on the precedent. Again, we've talked about Roe v. Wade, which is why people are very worried about that. But people are also worried about Massachusetts versus the EPA, a 2007 case that eventually forced the EPA to regulate carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases as pollutants. So yes, should we be worried about women's rights to choose in their own bodies? Yes. But the environment? Yeah, that too. So, this is a little scary. And continuing on the Axios article too, they note that she has taken a narrow view of public interest groups' power to sue, which really the point here means that is going to impact a high court setting new limits on who's able to bring cases that could really upend the environmental movement. So, lots to be scared about, lots to be worried about. Now, I don't tell you this right now to make you go out and feel depressed or drive you to drink, because that's the goal here. Not to drive you to drink, but to drive you to vote. To go back to circling back to Mitch McConnell, who in many ways I feel like now has almost just become a cartoon of himself. And is Trump in the same boat? We kind of feel like these are like those from bad 80s movies. Those are like the 80s bad guys, right? That are like, I'm gonna win, type of a thing. I mean, hell, seriously, Biff from the Back to the Future, he essentially is Trump. Now, I think we also need to have a little bit of that 80s can-do attitude. And yes, I am watching through right now season 2 of Cobra Kai. the extension of the Karate Kid franchise. So yes, I may be feeling nostalgic for for the 80s. But it is. It seems like we are set up in a place right now where we are set up between, in many ways, the battle between capitalism and greed and the battle between the environment and people. Does the earth matter? Do people matter? Or the Republican version of the Green New Deal is really just how to make ourselves more rich. Ooh, let's line our pockets because we've got a president who hasn't paid taxes in decades. That's where we're at. And I say that to continue to echo Doug's words earlier on the show, that we need to get off our asses, we need to go out and vote, we need to be engaged, and we need to keep pushing. And for those that are out there that feel like you have pushed enough, keep pushing. Keep pushing. I mean, we see this. Again, the last election was really more or less swayed by apathy. In this election, it seems like it's going to be swayed by Trump cheating his way towards another 4 years. Now, for me, that pisses me off. It pisses me off on many levels. One, because he's a sack of shit. But two, my faith tells me that people matter. That Black lives matter. That LGBTQ lives matter. That the point that every white person that says all lives matter is missing is, people do matter. They should. We should all matter the same. And this matters simply because to be a person of faith, Jesus tells me that my neighbor matters, that my enemy matters, that the earth matters. And if all of those things matter, we need to be voting not just for ourselves. We need to be voting for others as well, too. I'll just tell you the truth. I don't like the way the past 4 years have been. I don't even like the way the leading up to the past 4 years have been. Because I've seen friends scared. I've seen people of color not feel comfortable to live in their own country, in their own land of birth. I've seen immigrants not welcomed. I've seen us become hateful and misogynistic, bigoted, and disgusting, made in the image of the evangelical conservative God that looks like a bloated fat orangutan that screws everything, but really, in the end, he may have had several wives, had several mistresses, even a bunch of Russian hookers. But you know who he screwed over more than anybody else? The American church. Thanks, conservatives. Thank you, evangelicals. You've at least showed us your true colors. But now I want to continue to tell you to go out there and to fight. To be loud, to be noisy, to make a difference. To continue to push out the lies that are being told, to call out all of this. Because we may not like the way things are going right now, and if elections do have consequences, let's do what we're supposed to do. Let's go out and do what we are called to do. And I actually believe that Jesus is calling out us to go out and to vote for others, vote for the dignity of others, vote for the identity of others, vote for the humanity of others. So in ending this show, just a reminder that as we end this broadcast, that you can catch us on podcasts at www.snarkyfaith.com. You can also find this show and all other shows wherever they host podcasts. We're everywhere. Just look up Snarky Faith. I want to continue to thank Doug Patchett for being on the show, and also tell you guys to check out Vote Common Good. If you're in the area, if you are a local here, hey, we've got an event happening in Raleigh tomorrow, or in Greensboro the following day, or just go to the website, Vote Common Good, and find out what's happening. So I'm going to end you today in a bit of a weird note, especially as I was ramping up talking about way too many 80s, 80s references, with a bit of pop liturgy. And I'm going to just tell you something. One of my guilty pleasures is cheesy 80s music. Special place in my heart for it. Some days, what I need to get through. So this week's pop liturgy, I'm going to leave you with a mashing up of only the choicest of cheeses. We have a very beautiful theological cheese plate that we're going to be reading here from this pop liturgy, coming from none other than Heart. Not Heart. Dang it. Roxette. Get that mixed up. Roxette, listen to your heart. And the other one coming from Bon Jovi from Bang a Drum. So I'm telling you, we're going full on syrup here. But I'm sending you out in these words. Sometimes you wonder if this fight is worthwhile. The precious moments are all lost in the tide. They're swept away, and nothing is what it seems. The feeling of belonging to your dreams. But listen to your heart. And I don't claim to be a wise man, a poet, or a saint. I'm just another man who's searching for a better way. But my heart beats loud as thunder for the things that I believe. Sometimes I want to run for cover, and sometimes I want to scream. Bang a drum for tomorrow. Bang a drum for the past. Bang a drum for the promise. The promise of a new day, a new future that we can all fight for together with equal rights, equal humanity, and a care of God's creation. So as I send you out this week into the world, I send you out with the holiest amount of grace and snark and peace. Go out and make a difference in your own space because, hey, you're the only you, and the world needs more of you. All right, that's all I got this week. I'm out of here. Peace.